cannot bind my soul to this betrayal.
She did not shift. That was the thing Mary Sinclair would remember most. Years later, in a cottage at the forest edge, 2 sleeping children in the room above. The sacred hall glowed amber that night. Low fires burned along stone walls, pine resin, wood smoke. Something older, something that had lived in the bones of that hall for 1,000 years. Tomorrow, Mary Sinclair would become Luna, queen of the most powerful pack in the northern reaches. She walked the ceremonial corridor in white, the bondmark ribbon coiled around her left wrist, moonsilk, pale and soft. Tomorrow, it would be tied around her wrist and William's Blackwell's together. She had loved him without reservation for 2 years, never doubted it, not once. Tonight she wanted to find him before this ceremony. She had felt something that morning, the bond deepening, settling, like a second heartbeat starting beneath her own. She wanted to tell him first. She lifted her hand to the door of the east chamber. Through the 2-inch gap, firelight, and in that firelight, his hands. She knew those hands, large, familiar, the same hands that had carried her ice, skates across the frozen pond the winter they met, that had steadied a teacup when her fingers were too cold to hold it, that had rested at the small of her back that very morning. Those hands were in Scarlett's hair, her sister's face pressed to his chest, his arms folded around her, slow, careful. The way you hold something you're trying not to break. Mary did not move. 3 seconds, perhaps 4. Then Scarlett lifted her eyes, over Williams's shoulder, through the gap. Directly at Mary, she said nothing, did not pull away, simply looked. Not triumph, not guilt exactly, something closer to fear. But Mary's mind had no room left for nuance, only the firelight, the hands, her sister's face, the silence. The door swung shut, not slammed, not thrown, a click, small and polite, the sound a door makes when someone closes it gently from the inside. That gentleness was the worst part of all. Mary stood in the corridor. She did not shift. She did not scream. Her wolf, usually so close beneath her skin, she could feel it stir at the smallest thing, did not so much as lift its head. There was a stillness in her. The particular stillness of someone who has been hurt before, in smaller ways, and has learned exactly what it costs to fall apart. She turned and walked back through the ceremonial corridor. Wolfkin moved past her, carrying garlands, polishing silver bowls, adjusting great banners. None of them looked up. None of them saw anything different in the way she walked. She made sure of that. She entered the antechamber. The bonding altar waited, draped in winter white, candles burning low at its corners. She unwound the moonsilk ribbon from her wrist slowly, the way she did everything that cost her something, with care, with precision, as though the care itself might hold some part of her together. She set the ribbon on the ceremonial stone. Her fingers did not shake. Her face did not move. She walked out of the sacred hall, through the great doors, into the courtyard. The cold hit her like a hand against her face. She did not stop walking. She crossed the courtyard, passed beneath the old gate, entered the winter forest. The northern reaches did not see Mary Sinclair again. She had chosen Eldenmere for its ordinariness, a village that would not ask questions, a border that did not matter to anyone who did not want it to. 5 years in, Mary Sinclair had become someone the village could not imagine being without. Mornings, the small school at the end of the market lane, a dozen children on worn benches, learning their letters from a woman who never raised her voice and never needed to. Afternoons, the healer's cottage, where the sick and the unlucky came for tinctures, bandages, and the particular calm of Clara Wren's voice, telling them they would be fine. She carried wolfsbane oil in her coat pocket at all times, a drop on her wrists each morning, a drop at her throat, enough to dull her scent, so that any wolf passing through caught nothing but herbs and wood smoke. The fisherman's wife, Agnes, brought bread every Tuesday. She had noticed in the first hard winter that Clara Wren forgot to eat when the work piled up. She had simply decided to fix it, without comment, without being asked. The village elder, weathered hands, eyes that missed very little, had been the one to meet Mary on the road 5 years ago. Hollow-eyed, exhausted, 6 months pregnant, carrying nothing but a small bag and an unreadable kind of grief. He had not asked her name, or where she had come from, or why. He had handed her the keys to the empty healer's cottage and said, "Welcome then." Mary had not built this life by accident. She had built it the way she built everything, deliberately, brick by brick, with the precision of someone who understood exactly what she was protecting. The twins were 4 years old. Nora had been born first. From the beginning, she approached the world the way a small general approaches a battlefield, with suspicion, strategy, and absolute confidence in her own judgment. She trusted slowly, but when she trusted completely. Jasper came second 10 minutes later and had spent every day since operating on pure instinct. He did not ask where things came from. He found them. He circled new objects, new people, new rooms, inspecting the backs of things before he ever looked at the fronts. Both children had Mary's stubbornness. Both had their father's eyes, dark, storm gray, quietly weighing everything they looked at. Mary noticed it every single day. She did not allow herself to mourn it. She simply noticed and went on with the mourning. One morning, the three of them sat at the kitchen table while the porridge cooled. Nora was attempting, with great seriousness, to teach Jasper to count pine cones. 1. She placed one in front of him. 2. Another. 3. Now you say it. Jasper picked up the third pine cone, examined it from several angles, and attempted to fit it entirely into his mouth. "That's not counting," Nora said, with the weary patience of someone who had clearly had this exact problem before. Jasper removed the pine cone, looked at it as though it had personally disappointed him, set it back down. 4, he said, pointing at a pine cone that was not there. Nora considered this. "There is no 4, there could be," Jasper said. Mary watched them from the counter. The particular ache of someone who knows exactly how ordinary and how precious a moment is while it is happening. The first sign came on a gray afternoon in early winter. A stranger, a carter from the east, unloading supplies for the village store with the unhurried efficiency of someone used to long roads. He came to her counter for comfrey and rosehip. He lingered. "Been in Eldenmere long?" "All my life," Mary said. She had said it so many times it came out without thought. "Those your children? The 2 in the lane this morning?" "Yes." "Their father about?" "No." She wrapped his comfrey, tied it with twine. Her face did not change. She wished him a good morning. He thanked her and left. Mary did not move until she heard the cart's wheels creak away down the lane. Then she went to the window, watched it climb the hill, crest the rise, disappear. 5 years. She had always known it would be a question of when, not whether. She had simply hoped, quietly, the way she hoped for most things, for more time. She looked up at the ceiling, toward the room where the twins would be settling for their afternoon nap. The calm that came over her face was not the calm of peace. It was the calm of someone who had just begun, very carefully, to plan. He had not stopped looking. She had always known he would not. The carriage arrived 3 days later, plain black, no crest, 4 pack horses breathing mist in the cold air. It rolled to a stop at the far end of the market lane and sat there. Then the door opened. William's Blackwell stepped down onto the frozen road. 5 years had not aged him badly. If anything, they had carved something into his face that hadn't been there before. A harder jaw, a quietness around the eyes that belonged to a man who had been carrying something heavy with no one to set it down beside. Traveling gray, no pack colors, no guard. He was alone. He was trying not to look like what he was. He looked exactly like what he was. Inside the schoolhouse, Mary felt it before she saw him. A pull beneath her ribs, sudden and unmistakable, the bond. She had kept it quiet with wolfsbane and distance and 5 years of discipline. In the spaces of one breath, all of that discipline strained against something It could not hold back. She set down her chalk, told the children it was time for their midday break. A few minutes early, told herself she had more time than she did. Williams did not come to the cottage. He walked to the market well, drank from the public ladle, spoke to no one, and waited. The particular stillness of a man who understands that someone nearby is deciding whether to come to him, and knows that arriving at her door, uninvited, would answer that question in the wrong way. Mary watched him from the schoolhouse window for nearly 20 minutes. Then she put on her gray coat, picked up her market basket, and walked out into the lane. To anyone watching, a woman doing her afternoon shopping, pinned hair, practical coat, the unhurried walk of someone with nowhere urgent to be. She crossed the market square, stopped near the well, as though pausing to consider whether she needed more salt. She looked up. Williams looked back. For the first time in 5 years, they were close enough to see each other's faces. Neither spoke. The moment stretched 3 heartbeats longer than it needed to. Then he said her name, not Clara Wren, the name she had worn for 5 years. The other one, the real one. Said quietly, carefully, as though he had been holding on to the sound of it the whole time and was only now allowed to use it. Mary. It landed like a stone dropped into still water. The ripples moved through her chest in a way she had not let anything move through her in a very long time. She did not flinch. She did not run. "You should not have come here," she said, the voice she had rehearsed, in exactly this moment more times than she could count. "I know," Williams said. They did not talk in the market square. Mary walked. Williams fell into step beside her. They took the path along the village edge, past the last cottages, to where the road grew quiet, and the only sound was whined through bare trees. He did not demand anything. No commands. Nothing like the Alpha King of the northern reaches might have been expected to say. He spoke with a formal, careful precision that seemed to cost him something with every word. "I have been looking for 5 years. I am not here to take anything from you. I need to know." Mary did not answer the question he had not yet asked directly. She walked beside him, watching his face, cataloging it, filing it away in the place where she kept things she could not yet afford to feel. She could see it in him. The wound that had been held open for 5 years by the absence of 2 simple facts he did not have. He did not know their names. "Come back tomorrow," she said. Alone, she turned and walked back into the village without looking behind her. Williams stood on the path for a long time after she had gone. His composure, which had not slipped once since he stepped off that carriage, worked very hard to hold itself together. She had a whole architecture of misdirection ready. She looked at his face. She said yes. Williams came the next morning on foot, plain clothes, no crest, no guard. He knocked the way a person knocks when they are not certain the door will open. Mary opened it. The twins were at Agnes's for the morning, offered without being asked, in the particular way of someone who had noticed something and decided not to ask about it but to help anyway. The cottage was quiet, the fire low. Frost still clung to the window panes. Mary put the kettle on. Williams did not sit. He stood at the window the way wolves stand at windows, watching the tree line, working at a stillness that did not come easily. The bond hummed between them, low, constant, felt in the back of the teeth rather than heard. Mary kept her hands flat on the table. Williams turned from the window. "Are they mine?" Quiet, no command, no demand. Just the question, stripped of every formal distance he had carried since stepping off that carriage. The plainest voice she had ever heard him use. She had an answer ready, built carefully over years for exactly this moment. A human man with brown eyes. A timeline vague enough to leave room for doubt. A whole quiet exit from this conversation, constructed brick by brick. She looked at his face. She thought of Jasper's eyes, dark, storm gray, appraising, exactly like the ones looking at her now. Yes, one word. It fell between them and seemed to take a long time to land. Williams went very still. His jaw worked, his hands, careful, composed. Trained for a lifetime not to show what he felt. Closed around the back of the kitchen chair until his knuckles whitened. He said nothing. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet. Mary looked away. She could not bear it, not the grief in his face, not the matching weight rising in her own chest, not the unbearable, tender fact that some part of her had wanted him to know this for 4 years and had never once let herself feel that wanting until this exact second. When she spoke again, his voice was steady. It had clearly cost him to make it so. He told her everything. Scarlett had not been there for the reason Mary thought. Their father, Elder Callum Sinclair, had buried a codicil in the bonding contract, a clause that would have quietly transferred a significant portion of Pack territory to the Sinclair family. The moment the bonding was complete, Williams had never agreed to it. He had not known it existed. Scarlett had discovered it that evening, in a panic, and had gone to warn him. Reckless, frightened, reaching for the nearest steady thing, because she did not know what else to do with fear. What Mary had seen through the gap in the door had not been desire. It had been Scarlett badly, and at the worst possible moment, trying to stop a disaster. Mary listened. Her face did not move. He told her about the 2 days. He had not known that night that she had seen them. He only understood the next morning that she was gone. And even then, wounded and proud, certain she would come back when she was ready, he had waited 2 days before sending trackers. By then, Mary had masked her scent and crossed the border. The northern reaches had lost her trail entirely. It was not indifference, Williams said. It was my pride. I have not stopped knowing what it cost. Not for a single day. Silence. I know, Mary said finally. Not then, but later. I pieced it together the winter after I left. A trader mentioned the codicil. I put it together myself, sitting by a fire, very much like this one. Williams's head came up. You knew? I didn't come back. A pause. I had already built something. I had reasons. Neither spoke. The fire shifted in the grate. I would like to meet them, Williams said, very quietly, if you are willing. He moved toward the door. Mary stepped forward to open it. In the narrow space of the cottage kitchen, their paths crossed, and the sleeve of his coat brushed, just barely, against her arm. Both of them stopped. Neither looked at the other. The bond flared, bright and immediate and impossible to ignore. Neither moved. Then Williams stepped back. Mary opened the door. Neither said anything about what had just happened, but something had happened. Both of them knew it, and the knowing followed them out into the cold morning air. Nora crossed her arms. Jasper went immediately for the back of his coat. Williams Blackwell, Alpha King of the Northern Reaches, knelt on the cottage flagstones and said his name like it cost him something. Mary collected the twins from Agnes's at midday. At the garden gate, she crouched down in front of them, the way she always did when something needed to be said plainly. There's someone in the cottage who wants to meet you. He's come a long way. Nora's arms were already crossing. Who is he? Someone who knew me a long time ago. Mary held both their gazes, one after the other. I would like you to be yourselves. Nora narrowed her eyes. Is he safe? Yes. Does he smell strange? Mary considered this with the seriousness it deserved. He smells like the deep forest, like old bloodline. Nora thought about it, then nodded once, the gravity of someone ratifying a treaty, and walked through the gate. Inside, Williams had been standing at the kitchen window since the moment he heard the latch. When the door opened and the twins came in ahead of Mary, he straightened. For just a moment, before he caught it, his face showed something raw and unguarded. Nora squared up immediately, arms crossed, chin lifted, the focused suspicion of a 4-year-old who had appointed herself chief inspector of strangers. Jasper took one look at the very large man in their kitchen and disappeared behind his legs, where he began a careful structural survey of the back of Williams's coat. Williams looked at Mary, brief, barely a second. In it contained devastation. Then it was gone. smoothed away before either child could see it. He knelt. Not a bow, not any formal gesture. He simply lowered himself onto the cold flagstones until he was at Nora's eye level. The Alpha King of the Northern Reaches became, for that moment, just a very large man on a kitchen floor, doing his best to meet the standards of a very small girl. "Why do you smell like the deep forest?" Nora asked. "Because that's where I came from," William said. "The same place you did." Nora did not move, did not uncross her arms, did not blink, processing. Behind him, Jasper emerged from his investigation holding a pine cone, apparently kept in his coat pocket for reasons known only to him. He held it out to Williams with the solemn air of someone presenting a gift of great significance. Williams took it with both hands, the way you take something fragile. He held it as though it mattered, because in that moment it did. Nora watched this happen. Something in her face shifted. Small, almost nothing. The kind of change only a mother would catch. Mary caught it. Nora uncrossed her arms. She sat down on the floor beside Williams, not touching him, not trusting him, not yet, but staying. Mary stood in the doorway and did not move. Williams was fully occupied, now apparently being directed by Jasper to count an entire collection of pine cones retrieved from various pockets. She simply watched. Something that had been closed tight in her chest for 5 years loosened, just slightly, just enough to notice. She was not ready to name it, but she could feel the shape of it. The sense that the thing she had believed was finished might, with care, with time, become something else entirely. She turned and went to put the kettle on. She kept her back to the room a moment longer than she strictly needed to. Later, after the twins had gone up to bed, they sat at the kitchen table with tea between them. Williams had poured without being told how anyone took theirs. When Mary glanced down at her cup, she saw he had left the honey out entirely, the way Nora always had hers, the way he must have noticed, without anyone mentioning it, sometime in the last few hours. She did not say anything about it. He did not ask her to. They sat in silence, fire low, cottage quiet. Neither of them was the one to leave. It was polished and dangerous in the way of men who have been preparing for power their entire lives. He offered her silence in exchange for disappearance. She listened to the entire thing. He came 3 days later, early afternoon, timed for when Williams had walked into the village to send word east. Mary was alone in the cottage when the knock came. The man at the door was tall, immaculately dressed in pack colors that would have cost most of Eldenmere a year's wages. He introduced himself as Lord Dorian Ellington, Beta heir of the Northern Reaches, and smiled in a way that did not quite reach his eyes. He did not threaten, not at first. He was too skilled for that. He spoke about the High Council, about legitimacy, about how complicated things could become for a fated mate who had vanished for 5 years and returned with 2 unbonded children whose legal status existed in something of a gray area. He spoke with apparent concern. He was, Mary had to admit, very convincing. Then he made the offer. Disappear again, permanently this time. Take the children somewhere no tracker would ever find them. He would ensure Williams came to believe they were lost for good. Grief, closure, clean and final. In exchange, Dorian would see to it that the twins were provided for, quietly, generously, far from any pack politics that might complicate their lives. Everyone got what they wanted, he said. The children would grow up safe and unknown. Williams would move on. The Northern Reaches would have a clean succession. Mary listened to the entire offer without a flicker of expression. She did not shift, did not raise her voice. When he finished, she nodded once, the small, precise nod she used when she was filing something away. Then she closed her eyes for half a second, her smallest tell. It meant she had made a decision. Through the bond, lit and humming between her and Williams since the moment he had first stepped into the village, she sent a single word, his name. Williams arrived in 11 minutes, not breathless. Wolves did not arrive breathless, but fast. When he stepped through the cottage door and saw Lord Dorian Ellington standing in Mary's kitchen, something crossed his face that was not anger, colder than anger. The stillness of a man who has just understood completely that someone has threatened the thing he would die to protect. He did not look at Mary for reassurance. He looked at Dorian. What followed was not a confrontation, not the kind Dorian had braced for. Williams did not raise his voice. He simply began to speak, quietly, almost gently. A systematic, methodical accounting of every piece of fabricated evidence Dorian had assembled over the past several months. Every bribed border trader, every legal exposure Dorian had unknowingly created for himself in the process of trying to remove 2 children from existence. He ended with an invitation so formally worded it amounted to an annihilation. Tell your solicitors to write. Do not come yourself again. Dorian left. The door closed. The cottage went very still. William stood facing the closed door. The composure that had been immaculate through the entire exchange began slightly to come apart at the edges. His shoulders dropped. His hands, perfectly steady moments before, were not steady now. Mary had watched this man hold himself together through every difficult moment of the last several days. This was the first time she had seen the seams. You were afraid, she said. Yes, not of him. No. A pause. Not of him. He turned to face her. They looked at each other across the small kitchen. Something between them, the last careful distance either of them had been maintaining, began quietly to give way. I never stopped, she told him. Not a confession. A fact. She crossed the room to him slowly, the way she did everything she was certain of. 2 weeks passed. The High Council dismissed Dorian's challenge entirely. His paid witness recanted under formal questioning. The case collapsed before it began. Nora and Jasper were formally recognized as Blackwell heirs. None of that was the story. The story was Williams, sitting in the schoolhouse after the children had gone home, helping Mary stack reading boards while neither of them spoke. 2 cups of tea going cold, fire burning low. Outside, the first snow of the season falling soft and silent against the windows. He had been doing this for 2 weeks, staying without being asked. Mary set down the last reading board. She walked to the window, stood with her back to him, watching snow settle over the rooftops. I tried, she said, no preamble. After I left, I was very determined about it. I kept myself busy. I had very good reasons. A pause. But I never stopped. Williams did not answer immediately. She heard him rise from the table. She did not turn around. I know, he said. I didn't stop either, she turned. He was closer than she had expected, not crowding her, not urgent. Simply there. The way he had been for 2 weeks, steady in the particular way that had been quietly taking apart everything she had built around, herself piece by careful piece. She crossed the room to him, slowly, the way she did everything she was certain of. She stopped in front of him. He took her face in both hands, not with urgency, not with possession. The specific, careful attention of someone holding something they were terrified of losing again. What happened next was not dramatic. Unhurried, gentle first, a question more than anything else. And then something deeper, something more certain. The way it happens when 2 people finally stop managing what they feel and simply feel it. Outside, the winter forest stayed dark and cold and entirely indifferent. Inside the schoolhouse, the fire held. The bond, banked for 5 years under wolfsbane and discipline and distance, sealed, quietly, completely. The way things do when they have been true long enough that they no longer need to announce themselves. The bond ceremony was small, dawn. A forest clearing at the edge of Eldenmere, the first proper snow of winter. The village elder as witness, the same man who had asked no questions 5 years ago and asked none now. Agnes beside him, the same woman who had brought bread every Tuesday for 5 years without ever once being asked why. Nora stood at the front, holding both ceremony ribbons with an expression of profound seriousness. Jasper was technically supposed to stand still beside her. He was tracking a bird through the bare branches overhead. William spoke his vows in the old pack language, words unchanged for 1,000 years. Mary spoke hers in the same words, her breath mingling with his in the cold morning air. When the ribbons wound around their joined wrists, 5 years after the first attempt, in a different forest, under a different sky, Mary felt the bond close completely, like a door that had been left open to a cold wind for far too long, finally shutting. It did not feel like being sealed away from the world. It felt like being sealed toward it. Hongrable, years later, the same cottage kitchen, larger now, expanded to hold the family that had filled it. Nora and Jasper sat together, grown. The wolfsbane oil long gone from its shelf. Jasper said he remembered the exact moment he had first trusted their father. Not the ceremony, not the council's announcement. The morning Williams had sat down on the kitchen floor and counted pine cones and had taken the one Jasper offered him and held it with both hands as though it mattered. Nora said she remembered the tea. The first time he made it without honey, without anyone telling him to. He was paying attention, she said, before either of us had said anything at all. From the next room, Mary heard this. She stood in the doorway for a moment, the way she had always stood in doorways, watching, recording the things that were true. Then she came in and put the kettle on. The cottage was warm, the forest outside deep and old and quiet. Everything that needed to be said had already been said. On a kitchen floor with a pine cone, in a name spoken like it cost something. You stayed until the end. That means you already know. This wasn't just a love story. It was about a woman who built something worth protecting and never once asked anyone to save her. If that hit the way it was supposed to hit, like this video. If you want to know what Scarlett was carrying the whole time she watched her sister disappear, subscribe. That story is coming. And one question, drop it in the comments. When Mary set the ribbon on the stone and walked out, was that strength? Or was that the biggest mistake she ever made? I read every single one.